The film starts in December 1941 during the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. We see a German military truck stopping at a cold location. The soldiers then exit the vehicle along with a captured Russian couple. The man has a sack on his head, and when it is removed, he is revealed to be dressed like Hitler. This irritates the Nazis, but the man explains that they are actors performing in a theater. Hearing this, the soldiers order them to perform an act. The wife is reluctant, fearing they will be killed anyway, but the husband agrees to try. He then fakes it, pretending to be Hitler. However, the Germans are not impressed by the performance and tell him to stop. The commandant then directs his men to kill the couple. Right then, gunfire erupts out of nowhere, leaving all the German soldiers dead. Minutes later, the mysterious sniper who brought them down appears. It turns out he is a Nazi hunter known as Red Ghost, who is notorious for eliminating thousands of German soldiers. As a result, the enemies are currently hunting him down with a large bounty put on his head. The Red Ghost then begins ripping off the badges of the dead soldiers. He takes some of their food and even offers it to the couple. They are extremely grateful to him and ask for his name, but he ignores them and leaves. In the following scene, we see a group of Soviet soldiers who have become separated from their unit and are trying to find their way back in heavy snow. The group includes the squad leader Deed and his comrades Politryk, Kostya, Morichok, and a female nurse named Vera. There is also an injured man named Ki who is being carried on a stretcher. Minutes later, Deed and Kostya find a small boy who is nearly frozen to death. The boy's name is Dolt, and he tries to explain that he is a Soviet soldier. Kostya then examines his jacket and finds no weapon or anything suspicious. At this point, we learn that Kostya has a scar on one eye and is also mute. Although they are suspicious of Dolt being a German spy, Deed still decides to take him along. As they continue, the journey becomes more difficult as snow falls heavily. They then walk past the bodies of frozen soldiers and decide to spend the night in the ruins. Later, they gather around a fire to warm themselves. Everyone starts chatting except Dolt, who observes them from a distance. Ki then begins telling jokes to lighten everyone's mood. But minutes later, he dies from his wounds, shocking everyone. Vera cries a lot and mourns for him, as it is evident Ki meant a lot to her. The next morning, some Nazis arrive at the site where the Red Ghost had killed their soldiers. As they clean up the place, they discuss how he has disposed of 61 Germans in just 2 months. Hearing this, the chief commandant orders Captain Brunn and his subordinate Klein to find this man as soon as possible. The Soviets, on the other hand, continue their journey and soon arrive at a small cottage. It appears to be abandoned due to the German attack. Morichok goes to check first and calls his comrades after confirming that it is safe. Inside, he finds a table set with vodka and snacks. He tries to drink it, but Kostya suddenly appears and stops him. This results in a confrontation between the two as Morichok is adamant about drinking the vodka. However, the leader Deed reveals that it is a German trap set for partisans with poisoned food and vodka. The rest of the group soon follows, and we see that Vera is heavily pregnant. Deed and Politryk explore the house and find the residents who have been killed in the barn. They then cover the bodies with a blanket found nearby. In another scene, Brunn's team is seen driving through the snow. Klein tells them where the Red Ghost is operating, how many people he has killed, and in which town. However, Brunn interrupts by asking if he likes saunas. Klein responds that he doesn't, but Brunn implies that he is more interested in the sauna than the Red Ghost. Hearing this, Klein mentions that there is an abandoned town nearby with a great working bathhouse. He also assures Brunn that the area is clear and there are no enemies present. Back in the house, Dee decides they must go to the nearby town for food and matches. Vera is not feeling well, so she chooses to stay behind with Morichok as her guard. However, when the others leave, the Germans arrive at the same house. When Vera sees them, she quickly hides underneath a large chest. Klein shows Brunn the poisoned food on the table, boasting that his work has effectively killed many Russians. Meanwhile, Morichok finds his comrades who have not traveled too far. He informs them that the Germans have arrived at the farm and Vera is in danger. Politryk slaps him and scolds him for leaving her alone. However, Morichok claims that he went outside to pee, saw the Germans, and fled because he couldn't fight them alone. The group is now forced to devise a plan to save Vera. They stand back with their rifles and keep an eye on the Germans in case they take off. Back at the house, the soldiers set up a bathhouse for Brunn. They start playing with a pig, but Brun soon arrives and shoots the animal dead. He orders them not to play with their food and be more serious. Meanwhile, Vera continues to observe them silently from her hiding spot. Elsewhere, Dole talks with Deed and asks what happened to Kostya's eye. The leader reveals that a long time ago, Kostya took an apple from his garden. Deed fired a shot into the air to scare him, but he slipped and got his eye skewered by a branch. Deed admits that he still feels guilty for the incident. On the other hand, Klein wants Brun not to go to the bathhouse because the red ghost is nearby. This angers the captain, and he starts scolding his subordinate. Meanwhile, another soldier named Gunter hears Vera's movements under the chest. He then opens the chest and is shocked to find her inside. He attempts to safeguard her and leave unobtrusively, but Brun sees something bizarre and asks him what occurred. In the end, Gunter is compelled to concede that someone is concealing in the chest. Following this, Brun starts grilling Vera with Gunter as the translator. Later, the latter option seems thoughtful towards her and consoles her that they won't hurt her. Vera then reveals that she is 8 months pregnant and that the house belongs to her. However, Klein sees that she isn't in any of the photos hanging in the room and suspects she's lying. Vera then changes her story, figuring out that she escaped from an adjoining town and looked for asylum here. Sadly, trouble emerges when Klein finds her tactical uniform and ID in the corner, revealing that she is a warrior. She starts to overreact and begs them not to kill her, but in no profit, Klein starts to mercilessly whip her, making Gunter run outside and regurgitate. At some point later, Klein tosses the ridiculous and chillish Vera out of the house. The Soviet troopers who were observing the house from a good distance are stunned. Dead proclaims that Vera can't be saved, and they should leave. Anyway, Bonehead suddenly surges forward and slithers to the front edge channel. Morichuk sees this and follows him too. The two then, at that point, effectively wipe out 3 German gatekeepers in the channel. Then again, Klein chooses to hand Vera yet one of the more seasoned officer's objects, saying it's too cruel a discipline for a pregnant lady. Klein concurs and chooses to shoot her rather, but then starts reviling Adam and cases that God will rebuff him for his violations. When Gunter deciphers her words, Klein wonders whether or not to kill her. He hands the firearm to Jitia, saying he has 2 minutes to execute the lady. As of now, somebody shoots the trooper in the head and kills him. It turns out the red ghost has shown up and he tosses a few explosives at the house. Vera makes a move to take off through the wall. The Soviet warriors likewise start going after the Germans, and with the assistance of the red apparition, they figured out how to kill most of the Nazis. In the meantime, Braun, who was in the restroom, ran stripped into the animal dwelling place looking for shelter. The red apparition before long shows up at the shower house where Klein pours bubbling water on him. Klein then has a go at taking off, yet he excursions and hits his temple on a lock, taking him out. He awakens soon after, yet professes to be dead. The red ghost isn't faring any better as he also passes out because of the serious copies on his body. Subsequent to disposing of everybody, the Soviet officers inhale a moan of relief and bring the oblivious red apparition inside. They accumulate around the table and start eating the food left by the Germans. They examine what to do next. When out of nowhere, Vera begins having compressions. Luckily, Deed has some involvement with conveying children, so he and Nick would assist her with the cycle. After a long battle, she at long last brings forth a sound kid, and everybody praises the second. Somewhere else, we see Brown dressed as a lady running out onto the street before a gathering of Germans. The gathering is driven by a similar official who at first requested that him chase the red apparition. He is shocked by Brown's appearance and gazes at him with a disappointed Lou. Not long after, the red apparition stirs and starts to set up his rifle. He doesn't let out the slightest peep and essentially goes out. The Soviets infer from his way of behaving that the Germans are close by, so they plan for the fight to come. External the house, Klein at long last moves up and begins taking off. In the following scene, an enormous number of German soldiers surround the house and start their assault. They begin shooting projectiles that obliterate by half of the house. Luckily, no Russians are killed, and they start to counterattack too. Vera takes cover behind the oven while the others shoot back from cover. Dead, in an attack of feeling, apologizes to Sia for his eye and plans to give cover to him as the Germans approach. The red ghost kills a few of them and tosses a palm at the central leader that likewise disposes of numerous FOs before he is shot and killed. Polly is seriously harmed during the battle and has his jaw disengaged anyway. Mori punches his jaw once again into the right spot and gives him some vodka. In the wake of recuperating a bit, Polly Truck gets an automatic rifle and goes on a tipsy frenzy. He figures out how to kill for adversaries before eventually surrendering to Brun. Minutes after the fact, Warrior Shark is hit by an explosive and unfortunately loses his life. Costier is likewise shot by Brown, apparently taking his life. In the wake of killing everyone else, the Red Ghost and Bron at last meet. They participate in a fierce duel, first with weapons, then pikes, and afterward with their exposed hands. In the end, the Red Apparition wins and lethally cuts Brown with his cutting edge. Yet, when the heroes appear to have won, Klein shows up and shoots the Red Apparition in the back, eliminating him. The German trooper is then taken out by a puzzling expert marksman from a distance. It ends up being Vera and Bonehead who have figured out how to get by with a child. In the following scene, we see a similar entertainer couple from the very start of the film. Another German gathering has caught the man and is beating him before a group. His better half is likewise there, and she observes powerlessly from the sidelines. The German official then declares that anyone who has seen the Red Apparition should approach or the man will be killed when no one answers. He snatches a youngster and takes steps to shoot him. Seeing this, the entertainer at last shouts out. He portrays how the Red Ghost saved him and killed the Germans a few days earlier. He's not frightened this time and starts to directly revile the Germans. The Nazi official is irritated after hearing this and orders his troopers to execute him. Anyway, a sharpshooter shoots the commandant and several other Germans, killing them on the spot. The entertainer and his significant other additionally assault a few Germans with their uncovered hands and kill them. In the result, the sharpshooter looks through the dead Germans, eliminates their identifiers, and takes any food or weapons. The entertainer takes a gander at him and acknowledges he is an alternate individual. Yet he stays quiet as the film closes. We discover that the man is really Costier, who has made do and assumed the job of the Red Ghost.